All right, here we are, another episode of Freedom from Alcohol. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Chris Shatek, along with Lauren HOWMAN and Matt Gardiner, and we appreciate the support. I know more and more people are listening to this podcast, so we really want to thank you for supporting us. And Matt, how can they support? Like, what can they do to get more people to hear this?
Yeah, for sure. So the easiest thing to do is if you're on I think the two biggest podcast platforms right now are Spotify and Apple Podcast. So Apple Podcast, it gives us great reach if you go on there and give us a 5-star review, not just the 5-star review, but actually type something up as well. So that really helps us get the word out on Apple Podcasts. And I believe for Spotify, it's just give us a follow, and just send it to anybody that you figure will get something out of this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the more people that hear this, the better. We want to spread this message. And I really think, I just hearing it more and more, how more people are ditching the booze and going, I don't want that anymore, which I think is great. And more, alternative drinks are hitting the market and stuff like that. So I love to see it. And if you are one of those people, maybe you're sober curious, you've thought about this for a while, and that's why you're listening to this podcast. That's why we're here, to share our experiences with, ditching the alcohol. We've all three of us here have struggled with alcohol and have gotten to the other side of it. And that's why we do what we do now, because we've been on both sides, and it's much better on this side. I mean, honestly, it really is. You guys would agree, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like a million times better. And I know it can be hard to imagine that sometimes if you're in that darkness that I was in when I was a drinker. And it's like, oh my God, is it always going to be like this? Is it always going to be hopeless? It doesn't have to be. Okay. And that's what we want. We want you to take hope away from this podcast. And one of the things that I really think is important to talk about is the importance of investing in yourself, whether that is, working with a coach or a mentor, or investing in yourself in some way, because all three of us have done that. And it is dramatically, at least for myself, you guys can speak about it yourself too, but it has dramatically changed my life. Before I started doing this, I used to be the guy who was like, I'm not spending any money on that. Come on. You want me to spend a couple $1,000 on a coach, on a mentor? Like, no, are you crazy? And when I was in a spot of like, I have no idea what I'm going to do next, I need some help, I invested $4,000 into a husband and wife coach. And it was the best thing I've ever done for myself, because had I not done that, I would still be where I used to be. I wouldn't have had those breakthroughs. I would still be falling into the same patterns. And it wasn't until I took that leap, and that was a lot of money for me to go, I got to part with this. I didn't have a job at the time. Like, I had to dig into my savings to do that. But something inside of me said, I have to do this, because if I don't, I'm going to stay stuck. And what's so great about that is, since that moment, I've invested even more with coaches and mentors, because I believe in it. That's why I do this, because they were able to help me see stuff that I couldn't see, my blind spots, different perspectives. They were able to call me out on my bullshit that I wasn't admitting was there, and recognize these things that it was like an immediate shift. And I can't go back to that old version of me. And so, a lot of the times we'll talk to people and they're like, well, yeah, I want to work with a coach. I want to work with you guys, but that's just too much money. I can't afford that right now. And I want you to focus not on the right now, but where you could be, and what are the consequences if you stay where you are, because the return on investment in my case has been tremendous. I don't know, Lauren, you've worked with coaches. I mean, what's your experience?
Oh my goodness. I would never ask for my money back. I'll tell you that. And it was so valuable that I should have probably paid them more. Don't tell them. Don't listen to that part. Skip right over it. No, but it's been so impactful. In the last 4 years, I've had a total of 4 coaches. I'm working with one currently. I also have a mentor. His name is Chris. And so, yeah, I think of it, I was just talking to a client before this meeting and before we started recording this podcast, and we were talking about the role of a coach. And when we're drinkers, especially as problem drinkers, where we are kind of hiding out, we kind of put ourselves in a little box where, you come home and you start drinking at home. That's the best way to do it, because, everything else is just, it interrupts the flow of your drinking. Anyway, we just end up in this little tiny small box. And when you're working with a coach and you're saying some of the things that come out of that small box, I'm looking at the box from outside of the box, and I can see that there might be a tool right next to you within arm's length that you could use that would help you climb out of this little hole that you're in. And you can't see it because you've got the little blinders on. You just don't know. But that outside perspective in my life from being coached has been invaluable. And then I can really see how it's moved my clients forward by having that outside perspective. And not even to mention the accountability and the brainstorming and the creativity that you can get into when two people work together towards the same goal. It really is just amazing.
Yeah. And the word you hit there that I want to press upon is accountability. Like, that's so huge. You got somebody holding you accountable. It makes you get up. It makes you move. It makes you stick to what you're going to do and say. And so even that part alone can be tremendously valuable. How about you, Matt? I mean, what has coaching and mentoring done in your life?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, like I'd been doing therapy for better part of 10 years, and I'd used it for different things, relationship issues, addiction issues. And as soon as I got into coaching, to me, it just blew it completely away. And the reason being is, like, I find coaching to be a lot more of an immersive experience, right? So the difference between, I like the analogy, like if you go to talk therapy, it's like letting some steam off, out of the pot, so to speak, where coaching to me goes for the actual flame. Like, you're actually turning off the flame altogether. And then, okay, what are we going to do now? Right. So that I find that the program that we do is like, it's 90 days, and you have like the first 30 days, especially, there's like super immersive. Like, this is what you're doing. This is what you're living, right? It's a whole different approach than really anything else out there. So it really resonated with me, and right away. And I was like, wow, the difference between, like, therapy, which of course has its time and place. I'm not slagging it in any sense. I just find, for me personally, that coaching has completely changed my life. I use business coaches. I'm still using a business coach. I usually have 2 or 3 different coaches on the go at any given point, and I spent like deep 5 figures in coaching. I don't mind saying, because I've definitely gotten my return on investment on that. And, like, speaking of return on investment, I read somewhere that the average ROI, return on investment, for coaching is 6x. So, and that,
oh, damn.
Right?
Yeah. I didn't even know that. That's
a lot more than just like monetary. You can measure it if you're using like biofeedback forms, like your actual more intangible things, like you're feeling more confident. Like, there is ways to like measure this, right? Like, if you started the first coaching call you have, and you're like, right now I'm feeling 9 out of 10 stuck, right? And then by the time after 3 months, you're like, no, I'm like, I'd be 0 right now, or 1 maybe, right? So there is ways to measure things that you wouldn't necessarily think you can measure, and it's experientially, right? So yeah, definitely. And just as far as the investment piece, I always say it like this, right? So when I'm looking back at my drinking, which was often just sort of like, I didn't look at it, but when I did, it was like, okay, so 6-pack a day, $20 a day. So that's like $600 a month.
Yep.
Plus maybe going out once on the weekend is like at least another $100, probably more, but like, let's just, scale her back. So it's like $700 a month. And that was when my early 20s, where I was making like, $8 or $10 an hour. Yet I always had that money, and I didn't shy away from spending that every day, every day. And yet when it came time to essentially spend that same amount of money to help me get out of that spot that I wanted to get out of, I was like, I don't know about, like, kind of like to your point, Chris, I'm like, I can't spend money on a coach. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then as soon as I made that mindset shift, is like, Jesus, like, why didn't I do this earlier? Right. So yeah, and it's just, I know I'll always be using coaches. The rest of my life, I'm going to be using coaches in various like genres of my life.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, right? Like, all of us are coaches, and we believe in it so much that we all have coaches. Like, we're not asking you to do anything that we don't ourselves believe in, because that would be hypocritical. And it's like, yeah, not just investing in the not drinking, but yourself. Where do you want to be? What could you do if you really brought out the powerfulness that's in you? Whether it's working out, having a trainer that knows what they're doing, that can show you, hey, here's what maybe you've been missing that you could do, and you could accelerate your health, because we spend all sorts of stupid money, not only on drinking, but on shit that's not good for us, whether it's TV subscriptions or, all this crap that we waste our money on. But when it comes to like improving our lives, we're like, no, we put it on the back burner, and it's just nuts. And I'm with you, because I used to feel the same way. I remember when I first started going down this path of like, I got to change, because I'm tired of being stuck. I need something to do. And I started looking at coaching, and I, had spent some money. And one of my buddies was like, dude, you got to stop spending money. Like that's such a waste of money. And I almost listened to him. Like it got in my head and I'm like, he's right. I'm spending this kind of money and I shouldn't be doing that. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because I stuck with my gut and I said, no, I know I need to invest in myself, in my future. And had I not, again, I would be right where I was. And that's the saddest thing about when I have these consultation calls with people and they say, I'm not going to invest. I can't. You just told me if you don't do anything about this, you're literally going to either be divorced, lose your job, or die. I've had people say that in the next couple of years, if they don't get a hold of their drinking, they will die. But they tell me that they are not going to invest, the money in themselves. When honestly, you're really trading your alcohol budget for this budget. I mean, you could either spend the next few months continuing to give that money to the alcohol companies, to some fat cat at Anheuser-Busch or wherever, getting them richer and you getting further into this alcoholism, or you could spend that money on yourself and be in a whole different place. I mean, what do you have to lose, honestly? And the way that I like to explain it to people is like, let's say you wanted to buy a Subway restaurant franchise, right? You could go and do it on your own and try to figure everything out. And okay, how do I do the books? And how do I, make the sandwiches? How do I do this whole formula? You could do that. It would take you a long time. It'd be a lot of headaches, a lot of frustration, and you might end up giving up. Or you could hire somebody who's opened a bunch of Subway franchises, knows exactly how to do the books, knows exactly how to run the restaurant. So you get up and running, and it's in no time, you're a smooth running machine. So that's the way I like to explain the benefits of working with a coach and people that have, first of all, been there ourselves. We've all struggled with alcohol and figured out a method that actually works to break free from it and not just stop drinking, but really get a great life on the other side of it. And secondly, have worked with dozens of other people that this has worked for too. So what is keeping you from going that method? Like, which option is better? Trying to go at it alone and banging your head against the wall? That's what you've done for how many years and it's not working. Or saying, you know what, I am gonna pony up that money and invest in myself because I really want this to work. And I think when we can look at it that way, it helps ease the, oh God, you want me to spend how much on this? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's a couple of good quotes that always resonate with me too, is like, I'll have a couple of courses that I buy from like Udemy or something. They're like 10 or 15 bucks. And honestly, they're just sitting on my computer, the digital dust, as they call it.
Yeah. It's a Band-Aid fix.
Right. Whereas if people that pay attention, that like that quote a lot. So if you have a bit of skin in the game, or to use to some people, like a lot of skin in the game, man, you pay a lot more attention. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah. So people use that as an accountability piece as well. Like, you look at it like that. It's like, okay, I pay for this. I'm going to damn sure get my money's worth. I'm going to come out the other side a different person because, this is a big deal for me. So there's that part of it. I also want to mention, just to kind of talk about what you're talking about, Chris, is like, man, wasting money. There was actually a stat too that I looked up about like how many, just the average person, how much they waste in a year. And it's like $18,000. And that's a lot, but it's like unnecessary purchases. That's like food that just goes spoils in your fridge, you throw out. That's like perhaps not fixing a tap that's leaking. That's like, the Amazon purchases you didn't really need. Yeah. Like everybody's got some of this, right? And that's on average. So there obviously is people that are skewing it by outlandish purchases. And then, there's some of the other side of it, but still 18 grand is a lot of money, right? And to repurpose some of like these monthly expenses, to your point, Chris, the monthly subscriptions that I have a bunch that I'm just like, man, I watched Crave TV maybe once and that's $12. These types of things, you can really tighten that stuff up a little bit and repurpose that into something much more worthwhile. And the final thought I have too is, a lot of people are paying more for experience these days. Ever since COVID, it's a lot more like people are paying for vacations. So that's why I look at it is like, if you're spending like $2,000 on an all-inclusive 1 week of your life to go to, wherever, like a Cuba or somewhere, and you remember that for the rest of your life though, right? You've paid for that experience. So it's like, it's almost priceless in a way. So kind of view coaching as like that as well. It's an experience. It truly is. It's an immersive experience that it's going to change the course of the rest of your life. So view it as like that. If you're able to somehow part with money to go for these vacations, and have that experience and have those memories the rest of your life, kind of just maybe view coaching as a similar, it's like as an experience as opposed to you know, a utility or like a possession or something else. Like, so again, that's just something to kind of change your mindset on it.
Yeah, we don't need more stuff, honestly. I mean, we have way too much stuff, and I really want to be a minimalist. And so my wife and I are working on that. We're getting rid of some of the shit because I'm like, we haven't used that in forever. Like, why all that money that we've spent on stuff? Yeah, you're so right. Experiences and bettering yourself and investing in yourself. And I don't want this to come off as a commercial for us. I really don't, because I don't give a shit if you want to work with us or not. We'd love to work with you. But whatever it is, if you're listening to this and you want to make an improvement in your life, obviously, if you're listening to this, you have a bad relationship with alcohol and you've been thinking about it and reading and doing all these things, and that isn't working. So why not invest, whether it's with us or maybe somebody else? I don't care. Just do something. Take the action. So we'll wrap it up there. Lauren, did you have anything else to say, or are we good there?
Yeah. Quickly, I was just going to say, one of the things that I love about coaching is that it's very healing. You have an opportunity to just put it all out on the line, be raw and real with somebody who totally gets you. And I've never walked away from a coaching experience where I was the one being coached, where I was not better off. And then my final thought is they do have coaches for decluttering, just FYI. Funny story, I hired one a few years ago before the pandemic, and they came once. We came up with a plan because, yes, I want to be a minimalist too, okay? I want like 4 things in my house. That's it. I'm so sick of all the clutter. But I brought them in one time. It was lovely. They had a package that was going to be great. My husband could not tolerate it. He was like, he's going to listen to this podcast and be like, lies. No. He was freaking out because he could see on the Ring doorbell that the boxes were going out the door, and they would donate for you. So you didn't even have to go to like the Goodwill. Anyway, lots of fun. But it's very healing to have a coach. You want an expert in your corner, and you're really hiring a person who has your best interest in mind and is going to show up. So if you know, like when you decide you're going to run every day and you pick a random partner because it's your neighbor and you're like, we're going to run every day. And your neighbor's like, yeah. Day 2, she's like, I ain't going. And then you're like, I ain't going either. You have a coach. She's going to show up with her running shoes on, and y'all are going to get moving. And when you're like, I'm not going, she's going to be at your front door like, yeah, you are. And that's what we do for our clients too. They show up, we show up. We're always going to be there. And just having that person in your corner, it's invaluable. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it reminded me of that there is literally a coach for everything. I know a coach that charges $5,000 to do the perfect handstand, and he's making a killing. Like, people pay him $5,000 to teach him how to do a perfect handstand. I'm like, oh my God. So it really is crazy. So, and look, if you do want to work with us, we're not going to teach you how to do a handstand. I couldn't tell you. I did a cartwheel last week, and my back is still hurting. So I'm not the guy for that. But
I'll throw it in as an added bonus. I am very good at inversions and headstands and handstands. I got
you. Are you really? You can do that stuff? Oh, nice. Yeah. What can't you do? I mean, seriously, that's quite impressive. If you do want to work with us, we'd love to have you in our community. So first of all, join our Freedom from Alcohol Facebook group. It's facebook.com/I want freedom from alcohol. And if you want to book a call to see what it's like to, you know, we're going to have a discussion to see if you're a good fit and if we're the right person to help you, because we can't help everybody. But if we are a good fit, we're going to invite you to work with us, and you're going to have amazing results, because our clients do. And we really, really love our clients, and we're passionate about them. And it's an incredible experience. So you can go to coachbykris.com and just book a consultation call there to get the ball rolling. You can find me on social media too, if you want to just do it that way, @coachbykris. And so we will end it there, guys. Thank you. This is a really great episode. I'm grateful for you guys, and thank you for listening. Again, go share, go like, spread this everywhere so everybody can hear it, and get yourself a coach, because it's worth it. Invest in yourself. All right.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Gobble, 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 gobble.
Gobble, gobble.